Greetings everybody. Today's class is about physiology of stomach. This is quite a common complaint of elderly individuals after eating spicy food, that is burning sensation in the chest. Why is it? It is mainly because of increased acidity or acid peptic disorder. Now this acid peptic disorder arises in the stomach. Now there is a pathology inside the stomach. So before going to the pathology, as a healthcare workers, we should know about what is the physiology of stomach. So let's begin. So in today's session, I'll be talking about physiology of stomach in these sections. First, functional anatomy, then composition of gastric juice, then its regulation, then what are the different phases, and then a note about gastric motility and applied aspect. Now first, we'll see the functional anatomy of the stomach. The stomach, here you can see a hollow viscous which is J shaped structure, which is having lesser curvature on right side, which is on the right side, which is smaller in size, and a greater curvature on left side, which is larger in size. Now if you see the inside of the stomach, you will find lot of infoldings which are called as rugae. Now among these rugae are pits, several pits present. Now these pits lead to gastric glands. In the profile section of gastric wall, you will find mucosa, submucosa, muscularis area, and the serosa. Now in today's class, I am mainly concerned about this mucosa. Now this mucosa, it is mainly consisting of the thick mucus and then the gastric gland. Now what are the components of this gastric gland? Yes, here it is. This is the thick mucus layer on the top with a pit-like structure, a tubular gland which is called as gastric gland. These gastric glands have varied secretion. The secretion of gastric glands varies from region to region of the stomach. That is cardiac region of the stomach, they secrete differently from the antral region of the stomach. Now before going to the gastric glands, I would like to emphasize on the areas of the stomach also. Now the part of the stomach which is towards the esophagus is called as cardiac. Now in this region there is lower esophageal sphincter. Okay, behind this there is a globular structure which is called as fundus. Below it is the body of the stomach, and below body a small area, this pyramidal area, is called as antrum. Antrum ends into pylorus. Pylorus again has a sphincter which is called as pyloric sphincter. Now as I have said earlier, the gastric glands, they have different secretions from different regions. Like in cardiac region, the secretions of gastric gland varies from the gastric gland secretions from the antral region. Now what is the structure of this gastric gland? It is basically a tubular structure which consists mainly of mucus secreting cells on the top. Below it are parietal cells. Now these parietal cells, they have got a lot of canaliculi. You can see here there are canals. There are canaliculi inside the parietal cells. Below parietal cells are triangular cells which are called as enterochromaffin like cells which secrete histamine. Parietal cells, they secrete mainly hydrochloric acid and intrinsic factor. Now on the basal region of gastric glands are granular cells which are called as chief cells or zymogen cells. They mainly secrete pepsinogen, which is an active ingredient of gastric acid secretion which helps in digestion of proteins. Okay, so below it in the basal region are also G cells which secrete gastrin hormone into the blood. Okay, so now coming to the muscular layers present inside the stomach. It has got three types of fibers. The outermost are the longitudinal fibers, the middle are circular fibers, and innermost are oblique fibers. So it has got three muscle layers. So outermost is longitudinal muscle, middle one is circular muscle, and innermost is the oblique muscle. That's about functional anatomy of stomach. Now coming to its functions. Now coming to its functions. The functions of stomach can be classified mainly into mechanical, which are storage of the food, mixing of the food, and slowly emptying the food into the duodenum after it is converted into chyme, which contains finer small particles mixed into the gastric juice. Next important function is secretion of gastric juice and digestion of carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins. Next important function of stomach is absorptive function. It doesn't play much role in absorption, but does play a role in absorption of ethanol and water, and also water soluble substances like sodium, potassium, glucose, and amino acid. It also plays a significant role in excretion of certain toxins, mainly opioids like morphine. Next, coming to the secretory functions of stomach. Gastric juice is the main secretion in the stomach, which is secreted at a rate of 2 to 2.5 liters per day. The composition of this gastric juice is mainly water, which consists of 99.45%, and solids 0.55%. Now this 0.55% solids are again can be classified as electrolytes, which mainly consists of acid, the H plus ion, the chloride, hydrochloric acid, the sodium, potassium, magnesium, and a bicarbonate. And also enzymes. The enzymes are mainly pepsin secreted from chief cells, gastric lipase, gastric gelatinase, and gastric amylase. One of the important enzyme secreted in the gastric juice is lysozyme, which acts as a bactericidal. Other things secreted in the gastric juice are mucus and intrinsic factor from parietal cells. Now coming to the mechanism of HCl secretion, which is the important component of gastric juice. How it is secreted? It is mainly secreted from parietal cells. Parietal cell, as I have said earlier, it has got several canaliculi. Inside the parietal cell, carbon dioxide and water, which are readily available, are converted to H plus and HCO3, carbonic acid, in presence of carbonic anhydrase. Now this carbonic acid is a weak acid which readily diffuses to form H plus ion and bicarbonate. Now this H plus is pumped out into the luminal side. This side of the parietal cell is the lumen, and this side is the basolateral side where bloodstream or interstitium is present. On the apical side, the lumen of the stomach is present. So the H plus ion, which is formed from H plus ion formed from carbonic acid, is pumped out actively with the help of proton pump, which pumps one H plus ion into the lumen in exchange with potassium ion, utilizing one ATP. This is the site where all the proton pump inhibitors act. Okay, now whatever remaining bicarbonate ion is there, it is pumped out into the interstitium. Now this bicarbonate, which is pumped out into the interstitium, generally it is pushed out in exchange of chloride ion. Now this chloride ion, which enters the parietal cell, it is directly pumped into the apical region, particularly into the canaliculi, where it joins with H plus ion to form hydrochloric acid. Now this chloride ion is pumped into the lumen of the stomach. Under the there are two more factors, which is the increased electronegativity. Now this increased electronegativity is established by sodium potassium pump, which pumps more positive ion into the bloodstream when compared to the positive ions being pumped into the parietal cell. As you can see here, there are 3 sodium pumped out when compared to 2 potassium pumped into the parietal cell, which creates a net electronegativity. This net electronegativity increased inside the cell compels the chloride to be pushed out on the out into the lumen via the chloride channel present on the apical side into the canaliculi to maintain the electrical neutrality. This is how chloride ion and H plus ion are pumped into the lumen of the stomach from parietal cells. After they are pumped into the canaliculi of the parietal cell, they combine to form H plus and Cl minus, combine to form hydrochloric acid. After they are pushed into the lumen, they diffuse again to form H plus ion and chloride. This H plus ion is mainly responsible for maintenance of low pH. The other functions of hydrochloric acid are: it mainly participates in breakdown of proteins by activating pepsinogen into pepsin. It also inhibits the growth of pathogenic bacteria. Okay, that is how the HCl is secreted. Now let us see how the secretion of this gastric juice is regulated. It is mainly regulated by 2 mechanisms. One is neural mechanism and another one is chemical mechanism. The neural mechanism is mainly regulated by vagus, which mainly innervates the GIT as a whole, not only GIT as a whole but also stomach. So this vagus, it directly stimulates the parietal cells and zymogen cells, the chief cells, to secrete hydrochloric acid and pepsin. Okay, you can see in this graphic that HCl and pepsin are being stimulated directly by vagus. Now this vagus, not only it stimulates parietal cells and the chief cells, it also stimulates G cells, the gastrin secreting cells. Now this, when this G cells are stimulated, it causes the release of gastrin into the bloodstream, which again acts on parietal cells, enterochromaffin like cells and D cells. When it acts on parietal cells, it increases the HCl secretion. When it acts on enterochromaffin like cells, it increases the production of histamine, again which acts on parietal cells to release more and more hydrochloric acid. The third function of gastrin release from G cells is to inhibit the D cells. Now these D cells, they mainly secrete somatostatin. Somatostatin is said to be one of the inhibitor of G cells. So these G cells, by secreting gastrin, they inhibit the release of somatostatin, which is the inhibitor of gastrin, which increases subsequently by inhibiting the inhibitor. There is positive feedback role in release of more and more gastrin, which promotes gastric acid secretion. The other cells on which vagus nerve acts is the D cells. D cells, as I have stated earlier, it secretes somatostatin, which is inhibitor of gastrin release from G cells. When the D cells are inhibited, the somatostatin release is inhibited, which is inhibitor of G cells. As inhibitor of G cells is inhibited by vagus, there is more and more release of gastrin, which acts on parietal cells to increase gastric acid secretion. Now the chemicals involved in gastric acid secretion are mainly gastrin, histamine, acetylcholine, H plus ion and chyme. The gastrin which is released from the G cells, as I have stated earlier, it not only promotes gastric acid secretion but it also has trophic role on the growth of the fundus or on the growth of gastric mucosa. Other than that, it increases the gastric and intestinal motility. It also promotes increase in pancreatic, insulin and glucagon release. Those are the roles played by gastrin. Other than having an important role in gastric acid or gastric juice secretion. Now, other chemical factor which regulates gastric juice secretion is histamine. Histamine on stimulation by vagus and gastrin hormone released from G cells, it acts on two cells, that is chief cells and parietal cells, to increase the release of gastric juice. Next chemical factor is acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is mainly the neurotransmitter which promotes formation of gastric juice. Next chemical factor which regulates gastric juice secretion is H plus ion. Now, whenever there is increase in H plus ion, or when the acidity or pH falls below acid level, it goes and stimulates the D cells. Now, these D cells, they cause the release of somatostatin, which inhibits the G cells to further release gastrin, and that's how, in a negative feedback manner, gastric juice secretion is regulated by H plus ion secreted. That's all about the regulation of gastric juice secretion. Next is the different phases of gastric juice secretion. Gastric juice secretion has got three phases. Phase number 1 is cephalic phase, phase number 2 is gastric phase, and phase number 3 is intestinal phase. Phase number 1 is the cephalic phase. Now, this cephalic phase of gastric juice secretion occurs even before the food enters the stomach. How it occurs is, it is said that even the sight, smell, taste and thought of food, they stimulate the vagal center in the brain, which activates the vagus nerve. Now, this vagus nerve, which innervates the stomach, it increases the gastric juice secretion. In this way, about 45% of gastric juice is secreted even before the food enters the stomach, which is called as cephalic phase. Next phase is the phase when food enters the stomach, which is called as gastric phase. When the food enters the stomach, it stretches the wall, which again stimulates the vagus, and in a vagal reflex manner, vagus increases the gastric juice secretion from the stomach. And when the semi-digested food enters, it not only stimulates the vagus but also it stimulates the gastrin release, which again increases the gastric juice secretion as stated earlier. Next, in this way, in gastric phase, about 50% of gastric juice is released. Next is intestinal phase. In the intestinal phase, when the chyme enters the intestines, it causes the secretion of cholecystokinin and other inhibitory substances, which mainly inhibit not only the GI motility, the stomach motility, but also its secretion. But when the chyme is there in the intestines, still there is some amount of gastric juice secreted, which accounts to only 5%. So that's all about the different phases of gastric juice secretion. Next, certain application about this gastric juice secretion. One of the important pathology related to gastric juice secretion is peptic ulcer. So by definition, it is the excoriated area of the stomach or intestinal mucosa caused principally by digestive actions of gastric juice. Now, how it occurs? Normally, whatever acid and peptic enzymes are there inside the stomach, they don't act on, or they won't digest the stomach wall. Stomach wall is also made of proteins, but it is not digested by these peptic enzymes, or it is not affected by the acidity of the lumen because of following factors. Number 1, presence of thick mucus. Number 2, excessive bicarbonate secreted into the lumen. Number 3, increased blood flow. The increased blood flow, it basically prevents excessive H plus ion being accumulated inside the lumen. And then increased epithelial regenerative capacity. so that whatever proteolytic enzymes are there, they are whenever they are acting on the cells, there is increased regenerative capacity to regenerate more and more cells, to remove the damaged cells from the acidity and peptic enzymes. To coordinate all these things, there are several prostaglandins released, which mainly increase the production of mucus and bicarbonate. So those are the protective mechanisms which prevent the damage which might occur due to gastric acidity and proteolytic enzymes. Now, in pathology, what happens is, in pathological conditions, what happens is, either there is H. pylori infection or excessive intake of NSAIDs, which aspirin, cigarette, or alcohol. These things, they inhibit the production of prostaglandins, which is mainly a protective mechanism. Other than that, there might also be gastric hyperacidity and duodenal gastric reflux. Along with this, if a person is suffering from shock or delayed gastric emptying, there is increased damage or impaired defenses, which leads to the necrosis of the gastric wall, causing peptic ulcer. Now this peptic ulcer is treated by three things mainly in a non-invasive treatment procedures. Mainly is by offering or by giving the patients with antacids. Now these antacids, they mainly neutralize the H plus ion secreted into the lumen, number one, and then the other non-invasive interventional procedures or interventional drugs used are H2 blockers. They block the excessive histamine release, so that the histamine release is reduced, and which subsequently reduces the production of gastric juice. Last but not the least, commonly used non-invasive interventional drug treatment is proton pump inhibitors, which inhibit the synthesis or production of more and more H plus ion and release of H plus ion into the gastric lumen, and thus reducing the gastric acidity. That's all about peptic ulcer. Now coming to gastric motility. Before going to gastric motility, a basic revision of the different types of muscles present. So the innermost muscle, the outermost muscle present is longitudinal fibers, the middle are circular fibers, and inner one are oblique fibers. They contract as a single unit. That is a characteristic feature of the gastric muscle. Now this gastric muscle, it shows the gastric myocyte, the smooth muscle cell, it shows a undulating pattern in resting membrane potential, which is called as basal electrical rhythm. Now this basal electrical rhythm is a spontaneous, slow, rhythmic wave of depolarization of smooth muscle initiated by pacemaker cells, which is called as basal electrical rhythm. Now upon this basal electrical rhythm are peristaltic waves, which are nothing but the involuntary constriction and relaxation of muscles of gastrointestinal tract, creating a wave-like movement that push the contents of the canal forwards from oral end to aboral end. Now, what are the different types of gastric motility we see? So with the basic concepts about the gastric motility regarding basal electrical rhythm and peristaltic waves, we proceed to the type of gastric motility movements seen in the stomach. Gastric motility movements can be divided into two types: the motility related to meal present inside the stomach and motility of the stomach when it is empty. When the stomach receives the meal, initially it relaxes, which is called as receptive relaxation. Now when the receptive relaxation occurs, the filling of the stomach occurs. After it is filled, at certain point of time, a band of peristaltic wave starts from the fundic region. Peristaltic waves, which are under the control of basal electrical rhythm, soon start from the fundus region of the stomach and sweep towards the pyloric region, as you can see here in this graphic. The basic peristaltic wave, that is the constricting wave, which starts in the fundic region, it starts and pushes the gastric content towards the pyloric sphincter. Now the pyloric sphincter is closed at this juncture. Contraction of antral region is followed by contraction of pyloric sphincter, which prevents the emptying of gastric content. Now by preventing the gastric content emptying into the intestine, actually you can see here it is causing mixing of the food we eat with the gastric juice. Not only mixing, it also causes breakdown of this food into fine and small paste like consistency structures, which can be easily digested. Now after this mixing movements, mixing peristaltic waves which mix the food content in the stomach, and a fine paste like consistency paste is formed, which is also called as chyme, is formed. Then there is beginning of gastric emptying. Now this gastric emptying begins once the content of the stomach is crushed into very fine small paste like consistency called as chyme. Now this gastric emptying occurs in squirts, not in bolus form. Okay, that's all about gastric motility related to meals. Now about the gastric motility seen in empty stomach. The main gastric motility seen in empty stomach is migrating motor complex, which by definition is a peristaltic wave that begins in esophagus and travels entire GIT during interdigestive phase. Other motility which is observed in the stomach during empty stomach is hunger contraction, which are mild contractions that occur in the empty stomach, which increase in intensity over a period of time. Now last part of my class about vomiting. What is vomiting? Vomiting is expulsion of contents of upper intestines and stomach forcefully is called as vomiting. Now how it is done? It is mainly regulated by a vomiting center present in the brainstem. Now this brainstem area is again under the influence of area postrema chemoreceptor trigger zone. Now this area postrema chemoreceptor trigger zone is present near the ventricles, which is again influenced by drugs like opioids, chemotherapy, and hormones mainly which are released during pregnancy, and also certain conditions like uremia and certain conditions like uremia. Now this brainstem vomiting center is influenced not only by chemoreceptor trigger zone but also from the impulses coming from cerebellum via the labyrinth. You might have observed that few people complain of vomiting sensation when they travel in trains. That is mainly because of problem in the labyrinth, which sends signals via labyrinth cerebellum to the brainstem. Okay, next is the impulses coming from periphery. That is about the impulses coming from the central part of the central nervous system to the brainstem vomiting center. The impulses coming from periphery are mainly coming from gastric mucosa. Gastric mucosa is whenever the gastric mucosa is irritated by toxins like epicac, cytotoxic drugs, or irritants, it stimulates the vagus. Now, this vagus, it not only stimulates area postrema, but also it stimulates the nucleus tractus solitarius. Now, this nucleus tractus solitarius, it sends impulses to brainstem vomiting area, and vagus also sends impulses to brainstem vomiting center via stimulating the chemoreceptor trigger zone present in the area postrema. So all these impulses coming from periphery and the center, they uh, they they uh, they accumulate in the brainstem vomiting center. Now this brainstem vomiting center is also influenced by the impulses coming from higher centers, that is in cerebral cortex. Now the cerebral cortex cortex send impulses in response to certain uh, influences like emotion and emotions like pain, sight, and anticipation. You might have observed, or we might have experienced, that whenever we see a noxious thing or very irritating thing, we feel like vomiting. Whenever we see say a very bad or ugly things, or foul smelling things, or such kind of things, they basically cause a puking sensation. Now this puking sensation is mainly due to the influences going to brainstem vomiting center from the cerebral cortex. After they reach cerebral cortex, vomiting center initiates a programmed vomiting response. And what is that? The uh, vomiting programmed vomiting consists of three phases: a prodrome, retching, and vomiting, proper vomiting. So vomiting starts mainly as a prodrome, in which there is excessive salivation and sensation of nausea. After that, there is reverse peristalsis, which empties the intestinal contents from the upper intestines into the stomach, and then the glottis closes, which prevents the aspiration of vomitus into the trachea, and the breathing is held in mid inspiration. The muscles of the abdomen contract, and because the chest is held in fixed position, the contraction increases the intra abdominal pressure. The lower esophageal sphincter relaxes, and the gastric contents are ejected like a vomitus. So that's all about the physiology of GIT.